I should probably close this. It's better. Okay, I think it's all good to go. Okay, so some people are already checking in. I got the technical issue from last week figured out. I know what I did wrong. It was a dumb mistake on my part. But it should be under control now. Dinka's just greeting me from far away. She's actually about 2 meters away. Got a little bit of a live audience, a couple of people in here right now. Okay. So we're almost ready to start. We'll start on the right at the dot of 6. As usual.
It's 6 o'clock.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So for the next few weeks, I'm going to do a series on the 5 khandha, the aggregates. And we'll start with the usual beginning point for discussion of the aggregates is the Rupa khandha, the aggregate of form, or in the case of an individual, of a being, the body. At first, a few remarks to set the context, general remarks about the system of classification by the 5 aggregates and why the Buddha taught in this way. The primary use the Buddha makes for teaching the 5 aggregates is to provide a entry into the teaching of not self, of anatta, because looking at the 5 aggregates and seeing each one as empty and without a self-essence and nowhere a self to be found, then one can get closer to the idea of emptiness. The primary source for this analysis is a sutta where the Buddha cross-references the 4 ways of making a self via the 5 aggregates to come up with 20 possible delusions of self. You can take any one of the aggregates, body or feeling, etc., and identify it as I am this aggregate, or this aggregate belongs to me, or I am in this aggregate, or this aggregate is in me. making 5 times 4 is 20 ways in which a self-delusion is created. But when we look at any of the aggregates, we find no self anywhere to be found. The word kanda is translated aggregate, or generally, so sometimes it's older translations, they've translated it as bundle or heap, which is perhaps more literal because the aggregates themselves are not unitary factors, they're compound, they're derived from constituent parts. And this is particularly evident in the first one, the body. The body stands apart in some way from the other four. The other four are all mental aggregates, and the body is, of course, physical. And in a general sense, it refers to matter, rupa kanda, the aggregate of form. But when we're talking about a being and we're doing that analysis, then we're referencing that the body, the physical body. The body is considered, in relation to the other aggregates, the body is considered inert. It's the mental factors that actually have consciousness and awareness and volition, movement. In fact, according to Abhidhamma analysis of the transitoriness of independent physical dhammas, it said that motion is an illusion. Motion is impossible. And what we perceive as motion is merely a subsequent arising in adjacent locations, because each individual dhamma, or the atomic unit of matter, only exists for a moment, and it doesn't move or shift state. It flashes in and out of existence and disappears exactly where it appeared. But on a coarser level, in terms of a compound structure like the body doesn't move without the mental factors. If you move your arms or your legs, then you have to have a volitional impulse to do so. A lot of our meditations that we do are based on the body. The Buddha spoke highly about meditations on the body as a route to higher consciousness and to enlightenment. In the Satipatthana Sutta, there's more discussion of awareness directed towards the body than to any of the other bases. There are several different ways of contemplating the body, beginning with breath meditation, which is a body-based meditation. You're being aware of the physical sensation of touch as the breath enters and leaves the body. There's also the meditation on the 32 parts of the body, which is to go through a list of external and internal structures and liquids in the body, visualizing them. And there's a traditional list of 32 parts, forward and backward. And and things like bones and intestines, heart, lung, liver, blood, bile, and this is a way of breaking up the illusion of the body as a compact formation which is one of the ways we miss the truth of not self, is because our mind has a tendency to see things as compact units. So we see the body of ourself or of another as a unit, but it's actually a, a conglomerate of multiple parts and pieces. It also helps to overcome the sensuality directed towards the body. The body uh, is the source of sensual desire. The uh, desires for sense objects work through the sense organs, which are physical, part of the body, part of the Rupa Kanda, eye, ears, nose, tongue, and body, or the touch, the sense of touch in the body, which is distributed across the body. And our desires for pleasant, beautiful sights and sounds and smells, so forth, are bodily based, through that, having this form and those organs of sense. Uh, our desires work through that, and we see the body itself as desirable, whereas this comes from focusing on the signs and particulars. There's a discussion of this in the Visuddhimagga, how the mind that arises to lust for a body does so because of focusing on the signs and particulars, meaning there's certain aspects, certain shapes and relationships within the structure of the body that the mind finds desirable, but the total three-dimensional reality of the body doesn't arouse lust or desire. If we see the body with a skeleton and filled with various organs and pumping full of fluids, this is contemplation of 32 parts of the body, is to see the body in that holistic way. So it does have that effect of moving one beyond that kind of simplistic desirability of the body. Even the external signs of the body, when we contemplate them individually, they're not so desirable. The first meditation that's traditionally given to a novice monk is the head, hair, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. The first 5 of the 32 parts and the 5 external signs. And when you consider, you can think of a beautiful, desirable woman or man. You might desire the hair, the skin, so on. But when you consider them individually, skin is, pretty disgusting. If you've ever been in cooking and skin a piece of chicken, and you've got or something like that, you've got a bowl full of just skins. It's quite gross, right? There's nothing desirable or enticing about it. Same could be said for hair, for example. If you cut hair and there's a big pile of hair on the floor, that's not in any way desirable. So when the signs are considered in their own nature as they are, there's nothing desirable about them. Another way of contemplating the body is via the 4 elements: fire, water, air, water, earth. And this is a very traditional way, both in the East and in the West, of understanding physical matter, physical form, these 4 qualities. And when we consider the 4 elements, it's important not to take them at face value with the linguistic designation. When we say earth, we're not speaking about actual dirt, that we're speaking about a quality which is defined as hardness or impenetrability. And fire is the energetic quality, and water is the um, quality of taking shape. Um, because water, when you pour water into a vessel, it takes the shape of a vessel, and air is motion. So any particular aspect of actual physical matter has all four of these qualities in different proportions and arrangements, and we contemplate them in the body. And there's a very good meditation for walking meditation. It's derived from the commentary to the Satipatthana Sutta, utilizing the four elements with walking. Well, when you lift the foot from the floor, that's a fire element. So as you lift the foot, you focus on fire element. Then you move it forward through space. That's air element. Then you settle it down towards the ground. That's flowing downwards. That's water element. And then you press it into the earth. That's earth element. So that's an easy way of getting entry into contemplation on the four elements. And it's also useful for counteracting busy mind. The mind's running around because it gives the mind something to do, the thinking process, something to occupy it. Then there's simply the meditation of being of awareness of the postures, to be aware at how the body is situated, to be aware of the placement of the limbs and so on. And this is a meditation that really can be done at any time, just to have a general body awareness, to have situate your consciousness so that it's aware of the body. And I think we all have experienced times when we're not really in the body in that way, and we're stumbling and falling over, tripping over our own feet and so on. But when you're completely situated in the body and aware of the body, then there's a gracefulness in your movements. You walk like a Buddha. So there are these, and this doesn't exhaust the list. There are multiple ways of contemplating the body, and it's a very important part of the meditation practice to be aware of the body. And a lot of meditation traditions are based on bodily sensations, like the breath or sensations and other sensations in the body. And then now moving on to maybe a few more kind of general considerations, theoretical considerations. One thing to talk about is the relationship between the body and the mental aggregates. And this brings up the whole thorny problem in Western philosophy of the mind-body problem. The relationship between mind and body. The materialist view holds that only the body is actually real, and the mind is just a derivative of the body. The idealist view holds that only the mind is real and the body is just an illusion. And there were mental schools who held this latter. There were Buddhist schools that held this latter position. The Yogacara school held that only mind is real, and they're sometimes called Chittamitra, mind only, and that we're essentially dreaming all the time, that the physical universe doesn't actually exist. No Buddhist tradition um, um, has held that the materialist view. That was something quite rejected early on. That the idea of materialism is one of the two major wrong views, and it's actually quite a simplistic and naive misunderstanding to imagine that the body is real and the mind is not. It's an odd sort of inversion, because in reality, from an experiential or phenomenological point of view, the mind is obviously the only thing we actually experience uh, directly. Everything we experience is mediated through the mind, and we only know of the external universe hypothetically through the workings of the mind. But we know the mind is real because it's right there. It's immediate. So there have been in Buddhist history some different approaches to um, this relationship between body and mind. I've mentioned the Yogacara position. The Theravada position, I think the way I read it from the Abhidhamma, is that there is an external universe, there is an actual reality to the Rupa Kanda, but it's not something we can ever actually know immediately, because all our experience is mediated through the mental factors. And we never really know the external or material universe directly. So it becomes kind of a moot point. So when the Buddha said, for example, that when I speak about the world, loka, the world, which loka is a kind of multivalent word, but can mean the world or the cosmos. Um, but what the Buddha said in this particular sutta, he says, when I speak of the world, what I mean is just this fathom long body. This body is the world, because this body is encompasses our whole experience of the world. Another classic description of the body that's found in the scriptures is the body is like a sack with openings at both ends, built by mother and father, or originated from mother and father, built of rice and gruel. So this body is then seen um, as a process more than as a static object. It's it only exists because of continual exchange with the external universe. With every breath we take, we're exchanging molecules with the atmosphere, and every day we eat and drink, and we excrete. So material is passing through the body. It's like when you have a stream of water, sometimes they'll form a little whirlpool in the water. And this little whirlpool can persist for hours or even days. but the substance is continually changing. There's fresh water coming in and going and twirling around and then going out. This form of the whirlpool can persist for some period of time, but it's the material that makes it up is not uh, is not static. It's not the same from one moment to the next. So there are these two aspects of matter, of what we call matter in English. And in Pali, we have two words, Rupa and Kaya. And they're used kind of interchangeably generally, but uh, there is some when they're used with more precision. With there is some difference between them. Uh, Rupa means substance or stuff, and Kaya is form or structure. So if you have a drinking glass, the the rupa is the silicon atoms that compose the substance of the glass, but the kaya is the form of the cylinder that makes up the glass. And of these two, in actuality, kaya has more. In most cases, kaya will have more persistence in time. That rupa is considered to be momentary phenomena flashing in and out of existence. Although on this kind of also on a deeper level, it's the ultimately real, because it's composed of dhammas, paramata dhammas, although they persist only for a moment. It's also said in the Abhidhamma, and this is also confirmed in Sutta, when the Buddha talked about impermanence. He said that if anyone attaches to the permanence of the mind, they're 16 times more foolish than one who attaches to the permanence of the body, because the material dhammas, and this is explained in Abhidhamma as the material dhammas persist 16 times as long as mental dhammas. But they're both evanescent, transient. The quality of impermanence applies to all the aggregates. The quality of the three characteristics we've talked about, the emptiness of the aggregates, and in the case of form or body, it's the lack of a self essence. There's no part of the body that we could say is the essence of it. And this applies to all the aggregates. There's no svabhava or own essence. But it also implies that the dhammas themselves that compose the body are ultimately empty. They're ultimately void, because they also have no self-essence. They don't exist from their own side. They only exist relationally. And the body's impermanent. We can see the body as a whole, the structure of the body as a whole is obviously impermanent. Human beings only live for a few decades, and then the body disintegrates. But the individual components of the body are falling away and being replaced much more rapidly than that. And the dukkha has a particular, there's a particular relationship with the body. When we talk about the three characteristics, there is a teaching that says the different ways in which the characteristics are obscured or hidden from us. The characteristic of uh, emptiness is hidden by the illusion of compactness. And I alluded to this talking about the 32 parts of the body, that our tendency to see objects as discrete, compact units. So it's a useful heuristic for navigating the world, but it's not a penetration into ultimate reality. And it obscures from us by making things real in our mind. It obscures from us the reality, the deeper reality of emptiness. And impermanence is hidden by the illusion of continuity, because subsequent moments resemble one another and follow along in a stream of cause and effect. We have the illusion that things persist in time. So those two characteristics, the hiding factor or the masking, is somewhat theoretical and philosophic and requires some explanation to make sense of it. But in terms of the quality of dukkha, or suffering, um, it's masked by something very visceral and um, material. It's masked by changing of postures. You know? So something's, very bodily based, because dukkha is most evident in the body. One who attains to enlightenment, for example, by penetrating the nature of dukkha, is called a body witness. And normally we hide dukkha from ourselves by fidgeting, by changing postures. This is why beginning meditators often have a struggle with pains in the body, because it's the first time they didn't allow themselves the option of fidgeting away from dukkha. And of course, this applies metaphorically too, on the mental level, that we fidget mentally away from what is painful. But it also applies very viscerally, organically, at the body level, that we hide from dukkha by constantly shifting postures. So dukkha is felt immediately in the body. Pain and pleasure are felt through the sense of touch, which is, of course, bodily based. So and we'll talk about this more next time when we dealing with Vedana Kanda. But there is this particular relationship with the body as a source of feelings of pain and of pleasure. The body is compared by the Buddha in a series of metaphors that he used to uh, um, illustrate the emptiness of the aggregates. He compared the body to sea foam, or froth in the on the water, something that has a appearance of solidity and structure, but it's very insubstantial. And of course, we can become attached to the body, and we can become fearful for the body, for the uh, threat to the body posed by accident or disease, etc. It can be a source of anxiety. And this comes from not understanding, not seeing the nature of body as not me, not mine, and as impermanent and subject to change. That which is subject to change cannot be an essence of self. And I think I'll conclude with um, one more little parable that the Buddha gave that I find very powerful if we're speaking about contemplating the five aggregates generally, and I think it could apply very particularly to the body, I think. It's said that he was sitting with the monks in a park, one of the royal parks in one of the cities in India, and in the middle distance, they could see some people had arrived from the village and were gathering firewood sticks and making them into bundles and carrying them away. And the Buddha said to his monks, "Monks, when you see those village people coming here and taking those fire sticks away, do you weep and wail and beat your chest and cry, oh no, where are they taking the firewood sticks?" And the monks were kind of puzzled. No, no, we don't care. They're nothing to do with us. Why should we be upset? And the Buddha said, remember that attitude. That's the attitude you should have towards this body, towards feelings, towards perceptions, towards mental formations, towards consciousness. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll stay on the line for questions that you can type them into the chat, and I'll do my best to deal with them. Okay. Okay, we got one right away. Is there experience for which the body is not necessary? Can the mind experience itself without the body? Normally, in most situations, no. But there are exceptions. One is the primary one is the experience of the formless jhanas, the arupa states. And actually, after death, one can be reborn into that state as a arupa being. They're also called four aggregate beings because they don't have a body, they're just pure mind. So they have an experience, but it's not bodily based. And even in our ordinary mundane existence, we can have experience that's not directly or immediately related to the body, and that in being entirely in the mind. Again, most of what we think of and daydream about or remember is a reflection of sense impression, is a reflection of bodily experience. But it is possible to have mental processing on entirely abstract basis, divorced from any sense input. For example, pure mathematics. So let's see what else we got here. Why is there something instead of nothing? Big question. Well, short answer would be ignorance. Can you please explain the meaning of touching nibbana with the body? Well, I don't know because is that a quote from somewhere? Because I don't think you really touch nibbana with the body. That doesn't make sense to me. Is it possible to practice sincere karuna and metta when you know there is no self? Yes, that's just a kind of a paradoxical thing, but it's actually the culmination, the union of wisdom and compassion is the full enlightenment. And there is no self that suffers, but there is suffering. Suffering is a paramatta dhamma. It's the first noble truth. So we don't have to existentially believe in a self to um, understand that beings suffer. Do sensory deprivation tanks assist with five aggregate meditation? I've not experienced those tanks myself, but I think that in theory they could be useful for exploring the interior states of the mind without sense impression. you would certainly come to terms uh, with the experience that's entirely self-generated without any inputs. Things exist instead of not exist because of ignorance. Well, when I was saying ignorance is the short answer, I was thinking of the dependent origination that because of ignorance, karma formations, and the whole of samsara arises out of uh, that initial impulse of sort of missing the unconditioned, missing nirvana. That we, because we're ignorant of that, then we fall out of nothing into something. Okay, here's a explanation, I think, of that quote, touching the man with the body. That's how you should train yourselves. Why is that? Because there are amazing people hard to find in the world, those who dwell touching the deathless element with the body. I would take that to mean that they experience nibbana while still in the body. That it's not something that only occurs after death. It's possible to experience nibbana while still possessed of a body. Is there significance to the number of body parts, such as 32 parts of the body and the 33 vertebrae of the spine? Um, I don't know if that the 32 parts of the body, I don't think has any great significance, because actually in the suttas, it's only 31 parts. And the commentaries added the 32, they added brain, which was omitted from the 31. Um, 32, 33 vertebrae of the spine, I have heard that reference before. That's interesting because and I don't know if there's any real connection, but there are 33 gods in Tao Te Ching heaven. 33 is a number that comes up a lot in sort of esoteric and mystical circles. Is there any Abhidhamma explanation for dreams? No, dreaming is and we'll talk about that more, and when I do perception, because dreaming is a quality of perception divorced from the immediate input of the senses. Nothingness can't produce anything. I'm not sure if that's actually correct. Certainly, it's not. I don't know. Leaving aside whether it's correct according to Buddhist theory or Abhidhamma, I think modern physics would say it's incorrect, because um, there is something called the vacuum flux. Because if there's absolutely nothingness, it violates the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So subatomic particles have to keep flashing in and out of existence continually. So the universe sort of keeps creating these particles to keep the math straight. With all of due respect and sincerity, how should we approach and deal with the elite that are currently in seemingly on overdrive to the vax, etc.? What would a layperson Buddhist view should be? I don't really want to touch that topic in this venue, on this channel. You should know that YouTube is highly censorious, and I'm likely to lose my channel if I broach that. If you are interested in my thoughts on that topic, and I do have some thoughts, look for the video I put up on Odyssey. It's titled "The Dharma and the Jab," and you can look that up. And I speak on the issue there. You can make up your own mind, for, whether it makes sense or not. Well, nothingness has okay. Is going back to this nothingness and somethingness. If nothingness has the potential to create different states, is it really nothingness? Well, there's a way of seeing sunyata as being it's empty, it's void, but because it's void, it has universal potential. That and that anything that's manifest, anything that comes into existence, is then a limitation on that. The actual manifest reality is not doesn't have a universal potential. It is a very limited, fragmented potential. So nothingness actually has that uh, unrealized potential for anything to manifest. When it says to observe in meditation that the body arises and vanishes, doesn't mean the image of the body, not the rupa, not the rupa body, not the. I'm not sure. I think there's a typo there. Um, uh, when you're watching the body arise and vanish, you're watching the impermanence of the body. So you're watching how it's constantly in a state of flux. At a very fine grained level, you're seeing um, the impermanence of things, but uh, you can observe it with the breath. That the bodily formation that's breathing in comes into existence, exists for a brief moment, and then it ceases. It falls away, and then bodily formation that exhales comes into being, and that exists for a moment. Then it vanishes. It falls away. So you watch the body arising and ceasing. Okay. So I think we'll wind it up now and leave it at that, and we'll meet again next week, and I'm going to continue. I'll do a series on the 5 aggregates. So next week I'll talk about the Vedana, the Kanda, the feeling aggregate. May you all be well and happy. Okay.